The Mariners got their first sweep of the year and their first walk-off of the year, thanks in part to Ty France, who is very good at hitting baseballs. We're going to recap the sweep, gush about France, and a whole lot more on today's episode of Locked On Mariners. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Monday, April 25th, 2022, and this is the Locked On Mariners podcast brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered all season long with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day here on Locked On M's. We are free and available on all platforms. I am your host, Titan Gonzalez, reporter and editor at allseahawks.com, joined as always by my co-host, Colby Patno. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, it's DANE, GNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. Be sure to also check out our Patreon, where we talk about the Mariners even more and also get into some non-baseball talk twice a week. Visit patreon.com/control the zone for more information on that if you are interested. And if this is your first time joining us here on Locked On M's, welcome to the show. If you like what you hear, give us a follow or subscribe wherever you listen to this. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and give this video a thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. The win was taken out of our sails the last time we were on here. The Mariners had blown a 5-0 lead in a loss to the Rangers the night before, but they bounced back in a pretty big way this weekend. We're going to review their sweep of the Royals and offer up our biggest takeaways today. We're also, of course, going to talk about Ty France after his monster weekend and maybe explore the idea of extending him. What would that look like? Matt Brash struggled again with his control on Saturday. So we're also going to look over the rotation, and if the Mariners can live with him in it, should be an interesting conversation. But let's talk about this weekend series for the Mariners against the Royals. They win all three games. They get their first sweep of the year, like I said. Colby, you were at the ballpark on Friday, and in that game, Julio Rodriguez and Jarred Kelenic led the way for the Mariners offense. 4 runs between those two guys with a couple of one double and a triple from Jarred Kelenic. And Chris Flexen was solid in this one. You were up in the stands watching him. What did you see out of Flexen?
Yeah, it seemed like a better mix of stuff. He seemed to be working in the curveball and the changeup a little bit more than he had in the past. Velocity, I didn't keep super good track of it, but it did still seem to be down a tad. I saw a lot of 90s on the scoreboard. Flexen's typically 92, 93. I wouldn't call it an issue yet, but it's odd. It's something to keep an eye on. Maybe it's intentional, maybe it's not. But yeah, that's probably as good as you can get from Chris Flexen. He's never going to be the guy who's going to go, very, very rarely is he going to be the guy who will go toe-to-toe with Justin Verlander like he was asked to do last week. But, I think that's a guy who can keep you in the game, give you a good opportunity to win most nights. And on a very rare occasion, he can get after a mediocre lineup. A lineup that is struggling right now, but has some quality major leaguers in it. So overall it was pretty much more or less what Chris Flexen was last year. It was very similar to that. So nothing really jumped out positively or negatively, except for maybe the efficiency. He was very efficient to get through his 7 innings. So it really did help the bullpen. And thankfully he did that, because on Saturday they needed and yesterday, the next 2 days, they needed every arm they could get. So Flexen's start probably a little underrated, because he was able to get so deep and really allow the Mariners to have the bullpen flexibility they did over the next 2 days, and coming up on a 9 games and 10-day road trip. So it was good. It was good Chris Flex. Nothing that I'm over the moon excited about, but he was solid.
No, it was absolutely critical though with the state of the bullpen. I had said this when we were doing, or when I did our live watch along on the True to the Trident YouTube account at the beginning of the game. I told the few viewers that tuned in, and I appreciate everyone who did come through that night. That I wanted to see Flexen go deep in this game, and I thought he should have gone 8. Quite frankly, I was a little, but again, there was also, it was going to be the 4th time through the lineup for him and all that. So, there's obviously reasons for that, but me personally, I probably would have sent him out there for 8 because the pitch count was good. He was looking solid. He was moving along. Only made the one mistake to Salvador Perez, who again was pretty much the lone source of offense for the Royals for the most part. And yet they continued to insist on pitching to him. Julio Rodriguez really impressed me in this series. The strikeouts were still there, but he had the big double to get the scoring going on Friday. He had the game-winning walk on Saturday, and he had a really good catch yesterday in the top of the ninth after Hunter Dozier tied things up. There was another ball that was hit deep into the gap. I forget who hit it, but he ran that ball down. He also stole some bases. He came up big in the series. It still wasn't a fantastic series from Julio, but it was a pretty big step in the right direction. And honestly, at this point now, just kind of seeing where both of these guys are at, Julio Julio looks a little bit better than Jared Kelenic. Is that concerning to you? Do you agree with that sentiment as well?
I think it's easier to forgive Julio's struggles because there's been so much attention paid to his fortunate luck with just terrible umpiring.
Sure.
But overall, I honestly don't see that big of a difference in the approach of Julio and Jared. They're still, taking pitches they should probably swing at. They're still, they're chasing not necessarily balls, but they're chasing pitches they can't do a lot of damage on. And they're both getting to these 0-2 counts in very similar ways. So I'm not concerned about either of them right now. Kelenic had his moments again in the series.
Sure.
It's it's kind of right now. It's a kind of a 1 step forward, 2 steps back type of thing for Kelenic. But he's had his moments. By the way, the throw in extra innings last night or yesterday afternoon, 92 miles an hour to third base. I think Kelenic looks pretty good in right field. I know that's Mitch's spot. And they're probably going to move Kelenic to left field a majority of the time when Mitch is healthy, but Kelenic sure seems pretty comfortable in right. So I maybe would see if Mitch is able to play in left, but it's Julio is again, he continues to look more comfortable, certainly. And over his last 10 games, he's hitting 263 with a 349 on base. Not much power has showed up yet, a couple doubles here and there, but nothing too, no mammoth home runs, no, nothing like that. Nothing really even that close to home run yet. But no, I still think that, Julio and Jared, they both are facing kind of similar problems right now. I think Julio gets a little bit more of a break, though, because, again, he doesn't have as long of a track record as Kelenic does at the majors. And because there's a lot of emphasis placed on Julio's unfortunate luck on those kind of, let's be generous and say borderline pitches.
And let's just call it for what it is, right? He's more of a fan favorite than Jared is.
Yeah.
Lot more fans in the Mariners sphere gravitate towards Julio than Jared Kelenic. That's just kind of how it's gone.
Personalities, yeah.
Yeah. Jared, though, the big triple, of course, on Friday, and then, he might have been one of the reasons that they ended up winning the game yesterday, even though that he had an awful at bat with a chance to win that game in extra innings. But to throw out, what was it, Benintendi at third? It was already 4-3 Royals at that point. That would have been what, first and third with no one out or one out?
One out, I believe.
And I mean, the Mariners weren't going to score 2 runs the next inning. So there's a pretty good shot that Jared Kelenic saved that game for the Mariners with that throw. So that was huge. lot of big moments in yesterday's game overall. I mean, Matt Cook and Johan Ramirez holding the Royals scoreless in the 11th and 12th innings. That was massive. That was incredibly massive, especially for two guys that you have really no confidence in whatsoever heading into that into their appearances. For them to and especially Ramirez had to walk the tightrope quite a bit. Bases loaded. Control was not fantastic, but he still got a pair of strikeouts to end that inning, and again gave the Mariners a chance to win this game because they had fumbled an opportunity the inning beforehand where they had, Cook obviously held the Royals scoreless. All they needed to do was push one run across the plate, and they were unable to do that. Cal Raleigh and Jerry Kelnick with some rough at bats. Rough at bats, yeah. Kelnick especially chasing those fastballs up outside of the zone.
Raleigh's was really bad too.
Raleigh's was really bad too. Yeah. It was not a good day for Raleigh as well. Yeah. No. Fortunately, the Mariners are getting some reinforcements on the catching front. Luis Torrens is back from the COVID list. Mike Ford has been DFA'd to make room for Torrens back on the 40-man. Still no update on Mitch Haniger. We'll see how that goes. But the Mariners don't play again until tomorrow in Tampa, so there's still time for Haniger to be activated ahead of the road trip. I would presume that we will see him at some point. No idea if Scott Service, Manny Acta, any of those guys are going to be back as well. But Christopher Negron, what would you, before we hop on over to our next segment, what would you, if you had to give a grade to Christopher Negron in his first, what has it been, 5 games as interim manager? Because really? the pitching decisions, the bullpen decisions have not been the best, I would say. How do you feel about Negron? With what he's had to do.
I can't even give him a grade because that is a collaborative effort. Sure. Those decisions are largely made at, pregame. We get in this situation. This is what we're going to do. And again, it's not like he had this vast bench to go to. Like for basically the entire week, his bench has been Mike Ford, Dylan Moore, and Donovan Walden.
Yeah.
Ooh, so
yeah,
it's really hard to give him a grade. I'm tempted to give him a high grade just because he was able to dump the Gatorade on was it Ty yesterday or Jesse yesterday? Yeah. So I mean that's pretty baller for a manager to do that. So I guess for that and that alone, I'll give it like a 65, 70. But like that is such a collaborative effort, even when Scott Service is there. That Scott is making decisions based largely on things that his staff and his analysts have already agreed to hours before. So,
right.
And that's
and
why
Scott was obviously involved in the pregame stuff as well via Zoom. So, yeah.
And that's why the Mariners are able to lose their manager and not skip a beat because it is a collaborative effort. It shows more of the strength of the organization in game planning than it does, the individual strength of Service or Negron. But
right.
Hey, it's cool, man. Negron was, wearing a major league uniform 3 years ago, and now he's got a major league record, and it's a pretty good one. So it's cool. Yeah. It's cool, but I can't really give him a grade because it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah. So he goes. He's gone 4-1 now. It's a pretty good winning percentage right there for old Chris Negron. 80,
you guys heard it here first. Ty is advocating for firing Scott Service.
Clearly. That's exactly what I said.
Hashtag Ty hates Scott.
You're going to get it going now. All right. Well, the biggest takeaway from this weekend, really, at the end of the day, I mean, I got 3 words for you. Tyler Lawrence France. Our next segment is all about him. But before we get into that, though, let me tell you about LinkedIn Jobs. With spring in the air, it's a time of renewal and growth, personally and professionally. As your small business grows, LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who do you like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. You're listening to Locked On Mariners. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast. There are recaps of MLB games with analysis from our local experts, taking fans through the season like no other network. It is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. Colby, is Ty France the best hitter in the American League? Because right now, by F4, he is 1.2. F4 tied with Wander Franco, of course, but he also has the same WRC plus as Mike Trout, 235. The guy was incredible this weekend. 5 for 6 on Saturday night. He had 3 hits yesterday, including a 2-run home run to start the game off. I mean, this guy is just ridiculous, right?
I mean, he was pretty good this weekend, but there were a few opportunities he had that he didn't really take advantage of. So,
Sure.
I mean, for example, he was so good that the Royals didn't even pitch to him in the 12th. And you had to put all that pressure on Jesse Winker just because he was so good. Like that seems unfair, but he's certainly the best hitter, or certainly was the best hitter last week. I don't think that I think we can all agree he's not going to hit 370 or whatever he's hitting now for the entire year. But yeah, it's we shouldn't be so surprised. And I don't know if we're surprised so much as we're excited. Sometimes it's tough to kind of draw the line between those two. But yeah, Ty France is just a very, very good hitter. We knew that last year. Pretty much the only thing that kept him from hitting 300 with 20 plus home runs last year was the month of May, where he tried to play through a pretty bad wrist injury, and and before he hit the IL, and it totally impacted his numbers. So, I mean, the guy is that good. He's just an all-around good hitter. Uses the whole field, understands his approach. He's got some power. We're starting to see it a little bit more. Like I said, I don't think he's got consistent 30 home run power, but I think he's going to hit some home runs in bunches, and I think he's probably still 22 to 25 home run guy, but we'll see.
Right now he's tied for the major league lead in home runs, 5,
and we're 16 games in. So
yeah.
We'll see how he finishes up. But I think one thing we can all agree on is that Ty France can really, really hit, and if Jesse Winker can get it going, then the Mariners arguably have the two most underrated hitters in Major League Baseball, probably hitting back to back, which seems good. So, it was an incredible weekend. It's funny. On the road trip, you had like an 0 for 10 stretch, and there were like 6 or 7 of those at bats were just god awful, and yet here he is, just small sample size and all, best hitter in the American League statistically speaking.
And that kind of summarizes the Mariners as a whole right now with their offense. I mean, because they're right now the top hitting team in all of baseball from a WRC plus standpoint, which is kind of the all-encompassing stat for determining who's good at hitting and who's not. So, I mean, right now, arguably, the numbers right now say that the Mariners are the best offense in baseball through the first 16 games of the year. Of course, it's very, very early on, but I kind of feel like Ty France kind of represents the Mariners as a whole right now. And, because right now he's not striking out at all. It's 10.8% clip. He's walking pretty much at the same clip. He's getting on base. I think he's 3rd in on base right now. I mean, the Mariners, for the most part, are dominating the OBP categories right now. And, just everything that he does, his approach, the swing decisions, his ability to not only, hit for gap power and over the wall power, but to also slap the ball the other way. We saw that a couple of times in this game as well. His ability to hit it up the middle. all this. He's just a complete hitter. I mean, he's everything that you would want out of a guy who is just a pure hitter. And then on top of that, he's a pretty good first baseman too. And really, I mean, you look at his F4 right now. He's a 1.2 F4 guy. That honestly would be probably a lot higher. He might be in the major league lead in F4, if not for the fact that he plays first base, because Fangraphs in general is just not kind to first basemen in general from a defensive standpoint. They have him at a negative 2.3 defensive rating right now, and I can't think of a play where Ty France looked bad at first base this year. So not really sure where they got that, but also in the year that Evan White won the Gold Glove, he had a negative defensive rating as well. It's just first basemen are kind of frowned upon from a defensive standpoint by Fangraphs' standards. So, that ultimately is reflected in his F4, but quite frankly, I mean, you look at the numbers, you stack them up against any hitter, even the likes of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. right now. He's either better than or at least equal to the best hitters in the game right now. Will that continue? Probably not. There's going to be some regression there. But this is the kind of dominance that we saw from Ty France in the minor leagues as well. Remember, this guy in 2019, I believe, hit nearly 400 in AAA. That's just mind-blowing. That's stupid. That's just ridiculous. So my question to you is this, because I was asked about this yesterday, and we even talked about this a little bit in our private conversation on Twitter. What do you think about extending him? Because he's got 3 years left of control. He's going to be ARB1 next year. Mm-hmm. So technically 4 years of control if you're including this season, but 3 years of control after this season. He'll be 31 when he hits free agency. If you think that Ty France is still on an upward trend here, if maybe this Ty France is more in line with what we're going to get over the next 5-6 years than what we saw even last year, do you want to get out ahead of that and maybe buy a couple years of free agency?
I mean, if you can, but if I'm Ty France, I'm going to be kind of an older first-time free agent. And if I think I can continue to hit like this, at least somewhat close, then I'm probably going to get $20-25 million a year, right? So if I'm France, it's like I'm willing to, but if I'm going to sell you some of my free agent years and what's probably going to be my last shot to get a huge contract, just because unless he's Freddie Freeman, first basemen don't exactly rake in a ton of money in free agency. So we'll see. I think, again, the 3 year, there's really no rush to get it done. But the Mariners, like Ty France, he's only 27. So I feel like maybe if he's willing to do something like, so you want to buy out probably at least 2 years of free agency would be my guess. Otherwise, it's not really worth it to explore right now. So that's a 6-year deal. He's going to make $700K this year, probably about $3-4 million next year, depending on how he finishes up. Then probably let's just go 8 and 12 for easy math. So it's $25 million over the next 4 years, and then you want to give, let's hypothetically, he wants $25 million per free agent year. Are you giving him 6 and 75?
I mean,
maybe
right now,
because you're paying him up front, maybe it's 6 and 68 or something like that.
Well, here's the thing too, right? Is like Jerry DiPoto and his team had coveted Ty France for so long.
Yes.
They finally got him, and he's really good. And it seems like he kind of embodies everything that the Mariners want to be about. And that's exactly what we talked about with the J.P. Crawford extension. That if you put in the work, if you come to the ballpark and you like I said, embody what the Mariners want to be about, you will be rewarded. And so for me, I think maybe the Mariners have seen this coming. And at that point, I mean, if they truly believe that this is who Ty France is, or something at least close to this is who he truly is and who he's going to be over the next 5, 6, 7 years, then I think you make that move. And I think you bank on it. And I think you give him that money. But the other side of the coin, and this is what you were alluding to earlier, is and what you also talked about with JP's situation as well. You don't have to rush it, and I mean that's a fairly big risk. This is the other side of the coin here is the very big risk of giving Ty France and committing 25 something million dollars to him 5 years down the road, because we don't know. He could suffer an injury. He could just regress flat out. There's a lot of stuff that could happen in 5 years' time. So there's also the possibility that he regresses defensively at first base and he's just a full-time DH. Do you want to pay a full-time DH that kind of money? Like these are the things that Jerry Dipoto and crew have to consider here before making such a commitment. But I think from their perspective, just knowing how they feel about Ty France, I wouldn't be surprised if they made this happen.
Yeah. There's also some concern about Ty France's swing. It's not the prettiest swing in the world. There are a lot of moving parts to it. There's a lot of load and timing involved. And if that slows down, then
Sure.
obviously that might not age well. But France is pretty adaptable. He's a student of the game. He can tweak his swing, and it's not that he doesn't generate bat speed with the swing either. So, he can make adjustments there, but that is something else they're going to have to factor in as well. So to me, I look at it and I say, look, if I can get France I probably want to get 6 years because I want to buy out 2 free agent years. Otherwise, that extra year of free agency, I'll probably just play it out and wait a year or two before I try it. But if I can get 2 years of free agency at about, let's say $20 million a year, then I'm interested, and that would take him to right about 6 years, $65-66 million. And at that stage, does France do that? Probably not, but it's probably going to be pretty tempting for him. Because so far right now, he's made about $1.5 million in his major league career.
Yeah. And he's 27.
So, yeah, exactly. So we'll see how it works out. I think they're interested. I don't. It does seem kind of like he would be the next guy, unless Julio's willing to sign that 8-year, $95 million, $100 million extension, whatever. Right now, it seems like France is probably the next guy because the Mariners don't really have that many guys who are pending free agents who they seem likely to try to extend. Adam Frazier is kind of it. I don't believe they're trying to extend Mitch Haniger. I don't think they're working on a Winker extension right now, but maybe they are. We don't know. So pretty much it's Frazier, and then it's a bunch of guys who are 4 or 5 years away from free agency that they have to worry about. So we'll see. And hey, I'll give you one mini, maybe it's an extension, maybe it's not type of thing. What about Paul Sewald? What if they give him kind of an Andres Munoz level type of deal?
Sure. How old is Paul now? 31?
31, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So something like 4 years. I think he's got 4 years of club control left. So something for Paul 5 years, $8.5 million.
And talking about someone that embodies who the Mariners are, right?
Right.
Paul Sewald.
He's a leader.
Yeah. Despite
being a reliever, he's still a leader. He's got 3 years of club control left. So why not give Paul Sewald 4 years, $2 million per?
Yeah.
$3 million per or whatever. And then if he gets hurt or he's bad, it's like the Evan White trade. It's like the Evan White deal where you're like, oh well.
Yeah.
Bummer, but doesn't really matter.
Well, speaking of the pitching, Matt Brash has been one of the most fun pitchers to watch when he's on. The problem is he has been all that on since his first start in Chicago. How much of a problem is that? We'll discuss in just a moment, but real quick, a reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by Built Bar. This is the time of year that I've pretty much given up on all of my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar, and it almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. They are low calorie, high protein, so replace your candy bars with these. They are better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories with 30 grams of sugar and dozens of net carbs. Meanwhile, most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein, and they have so many amazing flavors to choose from, including mint brownie, coconut almond, and new for this month, white chocolate, cookies, and cream. And at Built Bar, they are all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, then they figure out how to make it healthy. So go to built.com, try one for yourself, try a bunch for yourself. Use promo code LOCKED15, that's LOCKED15 for 15% off your order. Again, that's LOCKED15 for 15% off your order at built.com. So Matt Brash struggled again with his control on Saturday. And it was, again, like we said the last time Brash pitched, and the last time we were on the show talking about Brash's performance, the control, to be generous, was 30 at best. It was not good. How long do you think the Mariners could survive having this kind of Matt Brash in the rotation, assuming that he's not able to bounce back?
I think they can survive a little while longer, but I don't think we're talking about, July here. I don't think we're talking about middle of June even. I think we're talking about 2 or 3 more starts, that without, pretty drastic changes in results. They might consider doing something, and maybe it's George Kirby, maybe it's not. Kirby's looked pretty good. Still has some things he needs to work out with his breaking stuff. So, I mean, I don't know if he's particularly ready, but I one thing at least I know about Kirby is that he's going to throw strikes, and he's going to give me a shot to win the game. And I don't know if I can say that about Brash right now. I know the Mariners haven't lost on days that he's pitched. Like, it's not.
They lost the first start, which is actually when he looked the best.
It looked the best,
which is crazy.
It is. But, like, I know that the Mariners have technically won the 2 starts he was bad in, but did he really give them that great of a shot to win? No, against the Astros, it was a lot of, luck, basically BABIP luck.
Double plays.
Yeah. And then this time around against Kansas City, it was
yeah,
it was bad. So yeah, I think they can go. I think they will go a little while longer with him. But when I say a little while, I think I mean maybe 2 times through the rotation, maybe 3. But if he's still throwing out there 35 control, like at best, being generous, 35 control, then I think they will make a move. And I don't know if that's going to be Kirby, but it seems like he's probably the most likely guy that they would go to. And then I would assume they would send Brash down in that scenario rather than stick him in the bullpen. But it is a possibility they just add Brash to the bullpen, or maybe they go a 6-man rotation. We don't really know, but I think it's premature to say that like Brash is on the hot seat, but I don't feel like the Mariners are going to give this version of Matt Brash a super long leash going forward. And if he's taxing the bullpen every 5 days because he just can't throw strikes, then you have to do something to protect your pen, because it's a really important part. Thankfully, he's sandwiched between guys like Marco, Flexen, and Ray, who have given you innings for the most part this year. But it's too much of a burden to place on the bullpen for a guy to go out there and walk 5-6 guys and only get through 4 innings on 85 pitches. It's just too much for some guys. So I feel like I would say if we're not seeing drastic improvement over his next 3 starts, I think the Mariners would strongly consider making a move. And I think it would be Kirby. I guess it could be Sheffield if he's still around. But my guess is it would either be Kirby or an outside the organization addition. But
Frankie Montas still hasn't been traded. So
yes,
maybe the A's lower on their asking price the longer this gets dragged out. But I
don't know. Maybe it's somebody like Daniel Ponce de Leon, who they picked up as a minor league free agent. Maybe it's Tommy Malone, who I believe is still in the organization. Yeah. Maybe they go with a spot starter for a couple of days, for a couple turns through the rotation. But I don't think Brash has a long leash. I think, his next start is against Miami, correct?
Yeah, on Friday.
And so that's not a
they are striking out a ton. Yeah, they're striking
Yeah,
out a ton. They're sixth right now in strikeout rate,
that
25.1% of the time.
that
So
lineup is not Houston Astros level, but I mean Jazz Chisholm is still a really nice player, and Brian Anderson can hit a little bit. It's Alvasel Garcia, so there's still some guys. I think Jorge Soler.
mhm.
So yeah, hopefully he can go 5. It's not even so much like if he walks 3 or 4 guys, like okay, but how did it look? You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
were they close pitches? Because a lot of the times against Houston and Kansas City, he wasn't close to the zone, and guys were just going up there and just taking the off speed stuff because it had no shot of being a strike ever. So he just has to have more competitive at bats, and I think he will, but I think he's on watch. I wouldn't say it's the hot seat quite yet, but I think the team is monitoring the situation, and I think they'll be fairly aggressive in making a change if they feel like it.
Well, also look at the position that you're in right now. You can't really afford to wait this out too long because you're not a rebuilding team anymore. You are a competitor in the American League right now. I just like obviously, we're 16 games in. I'm not saying that they're competing for the division or anything like that. I'm not getting ahead of myself here, even though that they are first place in the division and
Sounds like it.
and they're in a 3-way tie for the best record in the American League. However, I'm just even though that I think they're more in line with contending for the wild card for one of the wild card spots. I just think that you can't let something like this linger on for too long because you need to get quality starts every time throughout the rotation as much as possible, especially with the way that the bullpen is right now. With guys kind of we're seeing a little bit of regression from some guys like Drew Steckenrider, and there's been some injuries, and you've seen what a couple of injuries or COVID diagnoses can do to this bullpen. It can deplete it pretty fast, and yeah, they have been able to survive for the most part here, but you want to try to protect that bullpen and not rely on it as much as possible, and do that by getting some consistent starts out of your guys in the rotation. And it's just right now Brash is so boom or bust at the moment that it makes me a little concerned, even though I love him. And this is, I'm the biggest Matt Brash stan you'll find. And I'm saying this here that, he might not be ready to go 5 or 6 for a team like this right now, just right now. Because I'm legitimately concerned about his start after the Miami start, because that's in Houston against the Astros in that glorified little league ballpark. That's the Crawford boxes and all that stuff. That is legitimately concerning for me, for Matt Brash. So we'll see if you can get things turned around here, because that would be huge. If he can get things turned around, if he can get the control at least up to like a 40 consistently, that would go a long ways for him with that stuff, because he's the type of pitcher that can at least be effectively wild, I would think. So if he can at least be that, then the Mariners should be in a decent spot. I don't know about relying on George Kirby if because it's another rookie, even though the command and the control, all that stuff is a lot better than Brash, I would say. Still a rookie, still a guy making his first major league starts. That's a lot of pressure to put on him, even as a number 5 starter. So I don't know. I feel like eventually we're heading down the path of going to the trade market. And whether that's Frankie Montas, whether that's someone on a lower tier, what have you, I think the Mariners might have to look outside of the organization to get their number 5 starter still. And I think we kind of see why there was such an emphasis placed upon doing that from Jerry DiPoto this offseason, even after they got Robbie Ray. So we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. Obviously, as a Matt Brash stan, I would love for him to get things figured out. But it's a little concerning right now, not going to lie. That's going to do it for our show, though. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Dane Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DaneGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode as well. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day, just like you do here every day. We greatly appreciate the support. Now make your second listen of the day Locked On MLB. That's where Paul Francis Sullivan, and please call him Sully, brings you his unique perspective on the Major League's present and past. It's free wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. So have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we will see you tomorrow. Peace.